Good afternoon, everybody. I want to talk a little about today about there's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there. There's a lot of talk about alien races and alien beings. So I'm going to go visit a race of beings I've had contact before with. And I also want to talk a little bit about all this fear-based conspiracy theorists, conspiracy theories out there. And I'm just going to make this really short. And what I want to explain is that it's the same as religion, it's the same as politics, it's the same as journalism, it's the same thing. If it's all based on fear, should we really pay any attention to this stuff? The reason I'm saying this is because fear creates more fear. So every time we feed fear, we create more and more and more fear, which then creates an imbalance in the world. And as healers, as spiritual beings, as the human race, we should be looking more towards trying to better ourselves and heal ourselves so there's less fear within all of us. So how can we ever do that if there's always people out there spreading more and more fear? I look at a lot of fear-based things as just that, fear-based, based on very little understanding about what's important in life and what is true. You don't have to believe everything I say, but there's one thing I really want you to understand is that if a person spreads fear, they're not basically sharing the truth, because the truth is fear doesn't truly exist. And if you have love in your heart and you expand that love within yourself and expand love into all the places of the world and into the darkest places of yourself, the lightest places of yourself, you become in balance, and so does the rest of the world. So I'm just going to do a journey to these alien beings, and I want them to share a message with you, to the human race. I stand beside a being. He is male energy, and I'll describe this being very, very quickly to you. He's a bluish alien being, and he has no hair. His eyes are similar to grays, but not really. There's more life into them, so they have texture to them. His chest is like full of light, so you can actually see through his body, and you can see the energy parts. Like he has hands, he has feet. He's actually standing up like a humanoid being, but he's see-through, and you can see all the energy flowing. And his brightest part is obviously his chest, but then there's his head, and there's different energy points throughout his body. But it shows all these intricate lines of energy that go through his whole body. But he can completely be solid if he wishes to be, or he can completely see-through. But in his own planet, he likes to be see-through. He likes not to hide anything, is the best way to describe it. And he leaves himself open so people can see into his energy field, in a way, see into his soul. And this planet that they're around, we're almost like in an observatory, and we're looking towards, there's multiple planets here, and there's planets that are inhabitable and planets that are not. And we're surrounded by this, well, not surrounded, but in front of us is this massive blue planet, kind of like similar to Neptune. And there's lots of moons here. And the small, big, large, I don't know, within I'm looking at, I can see about probably 10 or 15 moons. And I'm only looking at a certain sideline of it, so about a quarter of my sight, I'm seeing a quarter of things out, and I'm looking and I'm seeing about a quarter, and there's that many moons here. And it's really interesting because the dead planets are now alive because they're surrounded by this massive city in a dome, and it's full of life, it's full of color. So what they do is they take the dead planets and they bring it to life with all this, with the technology and the beauty of everything. And then you look at the living planets, and the living planets are full of life, and there's very little interruption to the ecosystem. They actually visit these places like they would the park, and they have these teleporters that they walk through with the intention of going to specific places on these planets. And when they go there, they can intermix with the nature, but they never destroy the nature. They allow it to grow and flourish. And they have like little buildings here and there and places, but they're not, in general, they allow them to grow and prosper. And that's one of the things that he's talking to me about, is that in the human world, in our world, in the physical world, they're like interdimensional beings, even though they are in a physical dimension, but they also can go and travel through these portals, so to speak, through dimensional spaces, and can rephase into the physical and rephase out. Because that's one of the things I was wanting to show you, is that these beings can actually fade into just pure energy or fade into solid form. And that's one of the things that the human race hasn't understood yet. And that's what they're saying is one of the things they have not understood. But he says the most important thing that we haven't learned is love, and the love of nature, the love of themselves, the love of other races and animals and all these other things. And this is the most important thing that we need to learn. We need to be able to coexist with nature, with animals, with fish, with insects, with ourselves. Because these things have a purpose and have a meaning. And when we're able to do that, these beings will start to reveal themselves in a bigger way, is the best way to describe it. And they will not come to us in a big way until we're able to do that. They do help, and they do speak with certain individuals that have the right heart center, is the best way to describe it. The right understanding of life and of people, and willing to help others. But until we help ourselves, it's one of the reasons why they don't come in a big way. But they're really rooting for us. It's like a big deal to them when an alien race or an alien beings from other planets become more like them, because that's our evolution. We actually grow into this type of being. And it's beautiful to watch this, because these beings live a very long time. The life expectancy is way beyond if they even die. And I'm asking them, do you actually die? And they say, well, it's complicated, because it's not as simply as it's just not him. He's also all over the universe and the multiverse, so to speak. He's also in different time periods. It's like, so it's not simply just him. But yes, he says we can die by choosing to just cease to exist and to have another experience. But he also can tap into these other experiences and these other times. So most times they live for ridiculously long periods of time to experience life. But they do and can die, because they can come to a physical experience. In order to truly become into that physical experience, they must choose to do that. But then they can choose to come back here again in another experience. And for us to truly understand this, we must ascend into that, is the best way to describe it, because people know what ascension means. And this is kind of the way they're trying to describe it, is that the word ascension is to be able to raise your vibration to the point where you can become more like them. And the understanding of all this knowledge that you don't understand will come to the human race when the time is right. But you must learn to basically coexist with each other, and not just humans. And this is the part that people miss. He says that it's not just human beings, it's all life on the planet has to coexist. And it's really sad when a race of beings destroy the planet and they will not ascend. And it's almost like they create their own hell within themselves, because when a race of beings destroys a planet, a part of themselves permanently goes into darkness. Not permanently is the wrong way of putting it, but it's almost like a part of themselves dies or goes into a dark place, and it's very, very difficult to find your way out of that. It's not that you can't, but it's very sad when that happens, because every being that was on that planet feels the death of the planet. It's actually really fascinating. When a planet dies, everyone that ever lived in that planet feels the death of the planet. It's like a loss of, it's like simply just all you had to do is go to the test that day, but you didn't go, so you failed the test. And that test, if you would have been there that day, there would be somebody there that was in the class that you would have been able to become president of the United States. It's that big of a deal. And all of a sudden, you make that one decision, and it's much bigger than that, but they're trying to make it very, very trivial. That one decision would change everything. But when the planet dies, everyone that's ever lived feels it. And it's the regret of not doing something about it. That's why there's people on this earth that are very, very, very passionate and driven to try to change the planet. But then other people just don't seem to understand, because they're not open to the reality. They're not open to the voices of the spiritual realm, not open to the voices of heaven, of all these dimensional beings speaking to us, saying the importance of saving this planet. And he is, and wishes that everyone could really understand that. And he says it's not too late, even though some people might believe that. It's interesting because he shows me every being on this multiple planet, like a system of planets, actually sends light to the earth. And there's people that actually bring that light into the heart, and I'm one of them. And when people bring that light into their heart, they're actually able to talk to these beings. But you have to choose to bring that light into yourself. It's actually fascinating and beautiful. That's all the message that he wants to share today. It's a very brief message, but it's also a very important message. And someday we must really, truly see ourselves for what we really, really are, and the importance of this planet. It's everything on it. Thank you very much, everyone. If you wish to do a journey with me, you can visit my website at www.amonrosawakening.com. You can visit my website with Northern Lights at www.josephbradleyauroras.com. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a wonderful day.